everybody, including myself, looked at the Eastern Conference as a two-team race as far as the contenders, the team who could win the East. And those two teams were the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. And so far, I guess before that, you saw teams like, if you want to go dark horsey, some people like the Atlanta Hawks made a lot of moves. They're still trying to figure it out, but it has been looking good without Trae Young. I'm keeping my eye on that West Coast road trip. They've been winning games, and the Orlando Magic were another like dark horse team by a lot of people. They started off struggling. It seems like they're starting to get back on track, but for the most part, it really was the Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Cavaliers have not lived up to that expectation just yet. We're going to talk about this a little bit later in the episode, but even though the overall standings say that they're a half a game apart, I think it's more like a vibes thing. I feel like the Cavaliers fans will look at their season so far and say, hey, it's been relatively disappointing. Even Donovan Mitchell has mentioned it as like a good thing that they're going through adversity, because last year they didn't see any until they got to the postseason. So I would say they are somewhat disappointed, but not too much. I still look at them as a team that can win the Eastern Conference. But for the most part, the Knicks have been really good. After the first couple games of the year where Karl-Anthony Towns said he didn't necessarily know what his role was, everything has been great. Everybody's playing the exact role Mike Brown imagined, and that's really, really cool. I got to think about it like this. There's so much offensive talent on this team. It was kind of a disservice to the fan base and a disservice to the city that last year it just felt like the offense got to the point where it was Jaylen Brunson, top of the key, make some things work or not. It was just like that. And I also want to give Tom Thibodeau just a little bit of grace, because reminder, they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns like a couple days before the season started. Mikal Bridges trade happens a little bit before that. So it really was the first year of these guys playing together. And the first year playing together is never as good as you imagine it to be. And it seems like a year number two, things are looking good. Last year, the starting five, or at least let's go with the starting four, because there's always the wild card where there'd be a Mitchell Robinson or Josh Hart last season. The four of OG, Jaylen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Karl-Anthony Towns had a net rating of about 5 last season, which is pretty good. But this season, it's triple that. It's interesting stuff. I think it's important when you flame out in the playoffs, and we're talking about an Eastern Conference final flame out, not like one that was a first round exit or a play-in exit, to look at some of the trends that happen in the flame out. And I think that last year, if you look at what the Knicks did in a lot of those games and a lot of the series in the postseason last year, they lost that 3-point battle more likely than not. And I made this like math thing a long time ago about the teams that don't shoot a lot of threes, how much they're playing uphill, how hard it is to win basketball games and basketball series if you are losing a 3-point battle every single night. They lost the 3-point battle 11 out of a possible 18 times, and that number is from NBA.com, which is just objectively hard to win those games. It got to the point that last year they had a legit 0 net rating in the postseason. They were just really good sometimes and then just carried that with being really bad. So for them to now look at this season to increase their offensive frequency as much as they have, looks at that trend of last year's postseason, say, hey man, we lost this 3-point battle more likely than not. This year, it seems like we're more geared to compete in that scenario. Last year, regular season, 28th in 3-point frequency. Can you guess where they are at right now? They're all the way up to number 5. And I think what's good about this is that them attempting more threes or jumping up as much as they have not sacrificed the true identity of this team. I think about some of the other teams that entire identity is to get up threes, and we're going to get up threes no matter what, whether it be a Boston Celtics or like a last year Bulls team who has fallen off as far as 3-point shooting goes. That was their intentional complete identity. And when those 3-point shots weren't falling for those teams, it just felt like they weren't going to win basketball games. It's harder to win if your identity is not being sustainable. And the Knicks have not shifted their identity enough to make me feel as though if they got to a postseason series versus a team and their 3-point shot is not falling, that they can't pivot to some of the things that worked last season as well. Karl-Anthony Towns in the postseason last year had multiple games, 3 games to be exact, where he attempted a single 3-pointer in said game. Just one. And Karl-Anthony Towns is a self-proclaimed, and I'm going to say I believe this too, Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm not saying this as a negative, self-proclaimed greatest shooting big of all time. I would agree. So the fact that we have multiple games where he just attempted one, and most of those games he was 0 for 1, because if you're going to hit that first one, you're going to attempt that second one. Shout out to Draymond Green. That's the whole thing with Draymond Green. It's the case for most players as well. He had multiple games where he just had one attempt, and I just felt like there were many times he got lost in the shuffle. That is not happening this year, where he's attempting the most 3 points per game since 2021, which is a really good sign. One of the things I really like about the Mike Brown offense is how empowered OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges have been as ball handlers. There was just times where, like, Mikal Bridges last season, it was either sitting in the corner, going to take a shot, or he was going to get to that little mid-range area, do his little spin, and take the mid-range. That was like the two options when Mikal Bridges got the ball, at least other than like swinging it back to the wing. And I feel like they're empowering him a little bit more. I remember one of the first possessions of the season, maybe the literal first possession of the season for this New York Knicks team. And this is while they were still trying to figure it out. And I think, as we get to double-digit games on the year for them, that the offense is starting. I think that most people on the roster have figured it out. But that first possession was a Jaylen Brunson corner three-pointer. And if that is not setting the tone to what this season is going to be on the offense side of the ball, I don't really know what would. One of the things I am really liking, and it's kind of going to the point about that corner three-pointer, is when you have a guy as dominant as Jaylen Brunson, who in theory is not that great off the ball, and I think he's kind of changing some of the narratives this season as he's become more of a screener. He's cutting a little bit more, yada, yada, yada. When he's not involved in the action at all, I love the fact that they are putting him in a lot of cases just in the corner, because one thing you see from these ball dominant guards who have unlimited range or are really good off the catch is that they would sit 4 to 5 feet behind the three-point line on the wing and kind of let the other guys cook. And I love if you put Jaylen Brunson in the corner, he's always a threat, right? If you're sitting 4 feet behind the line, I mean, in theory, you are a threat because you're Jaylen Brunson, you can hit that shot. But a corner three-point shot for Jaylen Brunson is kind of like a layup. And while the frequency of his corner three-point shots have not gone up, I want you to go rewatch some of the games from just before he got injured and all, where OG Anunoby is creating or Mikal Bridges is creating, and they get past their defender, how the help man cannot help because it's Jaylen Brunson one more away, just becoming a threat without really being a threat. In a lot of cases, this is Jaylen Brunson's possession off. He's dead ass tired. This is possession off. But instead of him sitting 4 feet behind the line on the wing, he's sitting in the corner, and some of the times the ball still makes it to him, and he cashes out that shot. One thing I've loved about Jaylen Brunson's season, again, before the injury and all, is how often and how quick he's getting off the ball. One of the conversations about some of these ball dominant players, and I guess the best example of this is going to be Trae Young, because it's always a matter of like, will he be on the ball? If he's not, what is he doing? Is that Jaylen Brunson has been able to get off the ball more this season without sacrificing the overall usage. And it's hard to do. It's hard to have that balance. And I figure, or at least Mike Brown figured out exactly how to get that done. I can't talk about the New York Knicks being really good right now without mentioning a few names like Mitchell Robinson, who has been a complete revelation, where him and Karl-Anthony Towns have been on the court together. I'm going to say this, when him and Karl-Anthony Towns are on the court together, they are offensive rebound percentage jumps up by 20%, 20%. He's been a dog. The other night, he had 8 offensive boards in the game, and there was no Jaylen Brunson. Got to mention OG Anunoby, who will be out for the next couple of weeks with a hammy injury. Let's hope that doesn't get re-aggravated and turn into something bigger. But 2 weeks until he's reevaluated, he was on the path to be like, oh, could he get an all-star appearance vote, which is pretty dope. Landry Shamet just had a game where I think I mentioned this on Numbers on the Board. Landry Shamet flex after like an and one or a big play, and I swear he was shaped like Wolverine. I'm like, when did Landry Shamet get in the gym? Like, he had always been like a somewhat muscular guy, but that flex made me think that he had been hitting them weights real, real hard. So the Mike Brown offense has been working. I think there's still a lot to be done on the opposite side of the ball, as they sit around league average there, but the offense was the biggest thing that they needed to fix, and they did.